All right, good day, everyone. Today I'm going to talk to you about political polarization in America. It's a very difficult topic for some of you. But instead of starting off with a spiel about some of the things that we might see in our polarized America, I thought, why not start with a visual? Look at the stage. Well, it's great.
When was the last time you saw a Chevrolet in Tokyo? When do we beat Mexico at the border? They're laughing at us. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists. The big lie. Obamacare. $5 million we spent on a website. I hire people. They do a website. It costs me $3. Are you running? Are you not running? I am officially running for President of the United States. We need...
So, first, we see one side of the issue. We see Trump. We see constant polarization on the right. But, as things often are, it's a bit more complicated than that. Well, it would be great if you go back. And thanks.
Donald Trump wasn't the only one making questionable statements tonight. Listen to Secretary Clinton at a fundraiser here in New York.
Be grossly generalistic, you could put half of Trump's supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
Now, she just alienated an entire segment of the population here, just to give you some perspective. And this is largely a trend that we've been seeing a lot lately, from Chuck Schumer's stance that he will do anything in his power, along with the rest of the Democrats in the House of Representatives and the Congress, to stop any sort of plans that Trump has put forward, to Trump's own statements regarding a biased media that might exist. We are seeing that the right is becoming more right, and the left is becoming more left. Now, this can be called polarization, as it has been called by Pew Research Center, or it can be called what Washington Post prefers to call it, sorting. As political tensions seem to arise, people that are more centrist tend to be pulled more to the right and more to the left, depending upon where they lean. So it's getting sort of a situation you might see, a sorting hat in Harry Potter, almost. Now, this is not something that can be necessarily defined. This is not something necessarily that is so general and so easy to say, oh, we are polarized. There doesn't seem to be much information to back that. Well, studies do show at Pew Research Center approximately 40% of liberals and conservatives only have friends that are only a part of their respective ideologies. I mean, if you're a liberal, you tend to only associate with liberals, and if you're conservative, you only tend to get your information from conservative sources, your friends. 30% of these people also happen to view the opposing party as a threat to the well-being of the country, something on par with an economic recession or a natural disaster. Now, this obviously doesn't seem very good for how things are looking in America. Furthermore, the American Association for Public Opinion Research, according to the studies done by this also nonpartisan group, people are more likely to perceive opposing partisans as more extreme. And this is also showing this wider gap, this wall that seems to exist between these two groups. What can you better see this is in our own Congress. Now, this happens to be during the passage of the American Health Care Act, which took place about a month ago. At this point in time, this is going to the Senate. It has been passed in the House. But every Democrat in the House of Representatives actually voted against it, and the majority of the Republicans did. That's how it passed, although there were some overlaps. But the fact of the matter is, what happened when the bill passed is rather extraordinary. So just as it passes, you can hear. Well, can't really hear very well, but the Republicans in the House are cheering for the passage of the bill. They also, notably, decided to bring beers to the occasion, which was pretty awesome. At the same time, I'm not sure if you can hear it quite so well on this, but a sort of song started ringing out amongst the Democrats. Now you can't hear it, so I'm going to try and do it up here myself. Na 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 na. Hey, you can get it. In any case, this is quite extraordinary for a group of legislators that we elected to represent us as a people. Now, this might not be necessarily proper etiquette for a Congress. This seems more like proper etiquette for a New York Rangers hockey match. Now, this is also showing a tremendous divide between us, that we cannot even see that we're both fighting for the same thing, a better America. Instead, these rivalries between these groups are preventing us from actually getting anything done. Now, what can we do about this? Well, rather, let's talk about something else here, because you know what? This is more in terms of a Congress. We're not the Congress. We're not running for office. Why do we care? Well, there's something else you should care about whenever you try and have a productive conversation with someone. Now, does this have anything to do with politics? No, but I love Monty Python, and it does have something to talk about with regards to communication. You can fast forward to a minute. There you go.
Well, look at you then. I'm French. Why do you think I have this outrageous accent, you silly king?
What are you doing in England?
Mind your own business.
If you will not show us the Grail, we shall take your castle by force.
You don't frighten us, English pig dogs. Go and boil your bottom, Sunday, silly person. I'll blow my nose at you, Sulphur's Arthur King. You and all your silly English cattle.
What a strange person.
Now look here, my good man. I don't want to talk to you no more, you empty-headed animal food trough whopper. I fart in your general direction. Your mother was a hamster, and your father smelled of elderberry.
Is there someone else up there we can talk to?
No, now go away, or I shall taunt you a second time.
Now, again, nothing to do with politics, but it's very difficult to get your point across when you've got insults being hurled at you, especially by someone as absurd as that. And this is what we like to call in politics mudslinging, which is both my favorite and least favorite part of the business. It's the use of insults and accusations, according to Oxford English dictionaries, especially unjust ones, with the aim of damaging the reputation of an opponent. Now, the first time this was widely used in American politics was during 1820s presidential election, John Quincy Adams versus Andrew Johnson. Now, you might be saying, Andrew Jackson. Now, you might be saying, how bad could it possibly be? 1820s seems pretty tame. Well, the accusations ranged from the Jackson administration from bribes, extortion, as well as accusations of John Quincy Adams' wife being a prostitute. So as you can see, not much has changed since then. With regards to insults. Now, it's very difficult to get your point across when you're constantly being bombarded with this mud. You can't really seem to get a good opinion across, and you can't really seem to get the facts out of the situation if you're being called names by the opposing side, especially names that have nothing to do with what your platform is really about. As it says here, the closer it gets to election day, the farther I need to sit away from the TV. Now, what we really are talking about here is the ability to communicate effectively. That's what underlying over all of this, is the fact that we need to be able to communicate with people that do not necessarily agree with us. Now, how can we achieve that? First of all, the acknowledgement that bias exists everywhere. Now, no matter who you are or how unpartisan or unbiased you are, you still retain, to some degree, an opinion about a given topic. For example, teachers in school. People tend to associate teachers with a sign of authority, and rightly so. They know a lot, and they are here to teach us. But the problem is, regardless of the fact that they are meant to be unbiased, they exist to be a higher level of authority that we cannot challenge. It basically takes away our ability to see things from their perspective. They're a human being too. They also have an opinion on a given topic, and regardless of the fact that they might be actively trying to suppress their opinion on an issue, it may still come out in ways that we can perceive. And in that way, we will be able to assimilate their opinion into our own without even understanding that it's not necessarily fact, but rather fiction. Furthermore, going along with this, it's the ability to speak freely about a given topic. As George Washington once said, if the freedom of speech is taken away, then dumb and silent we may be led, like sheep to the slaughter. And here we also have Martin Luther King Jr., the civil rights rally in Washington, D.C. Going along with this is also the idea of safe spaces, which is a very interesting topic. It's currently still being debated today. Recently, the New York Times conducted an interview with several members of Safe Space staff team at Brown University during a debate on sexual assault. Now, the main problem here was that they had set up this whole area designated for people that did not wish to be a part of the debate, that wished to shield themselves from any sort of opposing opinions. Now, as a part of this space, they set up pillows, blankets, Play-Doh, toys, images of puppies frolicking on the screen of the smartboard of this classroom that they had set up. And this whole thing was set up so that people did not get bombarded with opinion that they did not agree with. But the thing is, a debate is to be bombarded with opposing opinions. Now, I might not like standing up here and presenting to all of you this topic, but I'm certainly not sitting in the corner with my head turned around, my hands pressed firmly over my ears, rocking back and forth in the fetal position. In the same way, it's very difficult to hear other opinions when you are constantly being sheltered from anything that might disturb you or upset you. In the same way, this is why the freedom of speech and the freedom to express one's opinions and also take them in is so important to the foundation of our democracy. As Socrates also noted, true wisdom comes to each of us when we realize how little we understand about life, ourselves, and the world around us. This also goes along with taking in other opinions, but also has to do with media bias, which has also been a constant topic of debate, especially during the Trump administration through accusations of fake news or alternative facts. Now, this slide, although it may look rather unfinished, represents something. Today, when trying to find an accurate graph to depict media bias from the left and the right, I found that it was rather difficult to do so, because no matter what I found, either myself, my peers, or my teacher would note that there would be some discrepancy that we didn't necessarily agree with. Now, this made things rather difficult, but this points out something very interesting. There is no absolute truth. It's very difficult to understand that, but we need to understand that no matter what source we get our information from, be it friends, be it the news media, nothing is absolute, because opinions can be distorted through omission and through the way people speak. It's very difficult to generally see what is real and what is not real because of people's own opinions. As Malcolm X once said, the media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make innocent guilty and the guilty innocent, and that's power, because they control the minds of the masses. And this is true. No matter what we may do to try and find a news source that is completely free of bias, we have to be aware of perception. We have to be aware of point of view. Now, despite all of these troubles trying to find a graph, I eventually did also a Pew Research Center, which claims to be a bipartisan news source, or source of research. And in this case, we can see that we have a general spectrum of news sources. From over here, we have a liberal side, and from on the right, we have a generally news sources that are more conservative leaning. Now, I'm not saying that if you are an avid reader of New York Slate, you should immediately transition to Breitbart. In fact, such transition may be fatal to some of you. And in the same way, Breitbart don't necessarily go immediately to the New York Slate. What we're trying to look for here is differing opinions. If you constantly rely on a single source of information for all sorts of opinions that you may have about a given topic, you are becoming insulated. It is your own personal safe space about a given topic. So instead of necessarily focusing in on one, or perhaps even one that may seem unbiased, it might be better to get an overall view of all of them. That means checking every so often the Washington Post, the New York Times, maybe even some Fox News, CNN, to vary them, to get other opinions, so that you can look at facts objectively. That's what the goal is here, so that you can form your own opinions. You're a human being. You are capable of forming your own opinions. And the reason for this is because the hope is that if you can form your own opinions, you'll see past this, an electoral map. You'll see past the reds and blues. You'll see past division. And you're going to see what the purpose we're all here for in the first place. We're all Americans. We're all here to do good for our own country. We're all here to contribute. We're all here to have our own opinions. We're all here because we like to express ourselves in whatever way that may be. And that gets to understanding perspective. And no matter what I say here today, no matter what laws may be passed in the future, I cannot legislate that you understand perspective. I can't do that. Nobody can do that. You can do that, though. If you understand other people's perspectives and point of views, you will be able to think about things objectively, form opinions, collaborate, cooperate. We can actually get stuff done. That'd be great. But in order to get you started off on the right foot, I need to make a small confession. I am a Republican. Now, did I just lose all of my credibility that I might have gained throughout this entire presentation? Quite possibly so. But the purpose of this is so that you too can now look at everything I've just said with a clear eye and a clear head and say, maybe I disagree with what he said. Maybe I have an alternative source. Maybe I have a differing opinion. And that's great. That's why we're here. We are Americans. We have a voice. And just as it's your duty to speak out and say your voice, it is also your duty to listen. Thank you.